Hello and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking open an ancient text that has a goal that feels, well, surprisingly modern. We're talking about how to understand the mechanics of our own minds. We're going to unpack the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali and see what this incredible manual can teach us about finding some real mental clarity.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Just for a second, think about your mind right now. Is it like a perfectly still, calm lake? So clear you can see every pebble on the bottom? Or is it more like a stormy sea? Just waves of thoughts, worries, and distractions churning everything up. This very idea, this metaphor, is at the heart of everything we're about to talk about. Okay, so the sutras kick things off with this core concept called chitta. The easiest way to think about chitta is as the literal mind stuff. It's the raw material of your mind. And the stuff is never static, it's always shifting into different states. Sometimes it's scattered, sometimes it's kind of dark and dull, and sometimes it's totally focused and concentrated. Now get this, according to Patanjali, our entire experience, everything we go through, really just boils down to two fundamental states of being. And the difference between them? It all comes down to this crucial and very common case of mistaken identity. Think of it like this. On one side, you have this state of pure concentration. In that state, the seer, that's your true core consciousness, is just resting. It's in its own natural, unmodified state. But then there's, well, all the other times. And in those times, that same seer gets all tangled up and identifies with every little change and ripple happening in the mind.
So here's a perfect example. You know when someone criticizes you and you feel that immediate sting of misery or anger? According to the sutras, you're not just observing a thought. No, you have identified with it. You've mistaken the wave, that mental modification, which they call a vritti, for the entire ocean of who you are. And that identification, that's where the suffering comes from. So, this naturally leads to the big question. What's the goal here? Well, if the problem is getting lost in all those waves, the solution has to be finding a way to calm the water so we can finally see what's really down there beneath the surface. And that's really the whole idea in a nutshell. The point isn't to get rid of thoughts entirely, that's impossible. The point is to quiet all that mental turbulence. Because just like a lake becomes crystal clear when it's calm, a calm mind lets us see our true nature, without all the constant chatter and emotional noise getting in the way. Of course, you can't calm a storm if you don't know what's causing the waves, right? So to quiet them, we first have to understand them. And the sutras give us a fantastic map, classifying all these mental modifications, these vrittis, and pointing out that any one of them can be either painful or not painful. So you might be wondering, okay, just how many types of these mental waves are we talking about here? Well, in a move that's just brilliantly simple, the sutras categorize every single possible thought, feeling, and experience into just 5 basic classes. That's it, 5. And here they are. This list basically covers the whole shebang of what our minds do. Right knowledge is when our perception is accurate, when we see things as they really are. Indiscrimination is the opposite. That's our misperceptions, when we get it wrong. Verbal delusion is when we get caught up in words that don't actually point to anything real. And yeah, even sleep and memory are considered their own unique modifications, distinct types of waves on the lake of our mind. All right, let's dig into that first one, right knowledge, because it's kind of the bedrock for a clear mind. How do we actually know if what we think we know is real? The sutras lay out a surprisingly logical system to answer that very question. So, this right knowledge has a specific name, pramana. And its foundation is really simple, proof. Proof happens when our different ways of perceiving something all line up and they don't contradict each other. It's as straightforward as that. And this proof, it comes from 3 valid sources. First up, you've got direct perception. What you see with your own eyes, what you feel yourself. Simple. The second is inference. You see smoke, you infer there's a fire. Makes sense. But the third one, competent evidence, this one is really unique. It comes from a very specific kind of person. So who is this person? They're called an Apta. Now, an Apta isn't just someone who had a good idea or got a flash of inspiration from some outside force. No, this is a yogi who has directly perceived truth from within by using a mind that is incredibly concentrated. The word Apta itself literally means attained. They've attained that knowledge. Right, but hold on a second. This immediately brings up a huge question, doesn't it? Anyone could run around claiming to be an Apta. So how on earth are you supposed to trust them? Well, the sutras saw this coming, and they don't ask for blind faith. Instead, they give you a surprisingly tough checklist for verification.
And this framework is so practical, it's almost scientific. You have to really examine their character. Ask yourself, are they completely unselfish? Are they chasing money or fame? Then you test their knowledge. Does it actually help the world? Does it fly in the face of other established truths? And here's the kicker. Is what they discovered something that other people could, at least in theory, go and verify for themselves? It's a system that demands both spiritual insight and logical rigor. Pretty amazing.
So what happens when we don't have that right knowledge? Well, that's when we fall into the second vritti, the second wave, indiscrimination. This is just false knowledge. The classic example they use is seeing a shimmering piece of mother of pearl on the ground and for a split second being absolutely convinced that it's a piece of silver. Your perception is just off. And that brings us full circle, doesn't it? From understanding the raw stuff of the mind, to mapping out the 5 types of waves that ripple across its surface, to even building a framework for telling what's real and what isn't. The sutras really do lay out a path from total turbulence to profound clarity, which leaves us with one last question to think about. If you could truly quiet the waves of your own mind, what truth would you find waiting for you at the bottom of the lake?